So what I want to do with our time today, this is the third, it's going to say fourth. This is the third session on program level assessment. So this is not program health. This is our focus on our continuing efforts to measure and document how we follow and demonstrate student learning within the program. So I can't remember, Robin, actually for sharing purposes, have we walked through with you yet how to connect assignments in Canvas to outcomes?
We have one time, and I'm in the process of updating outcomes to our new program breakdown and stuff. So we can do it, but it won't mean a whole lot.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm thinking for today's purposes as a sample, and Karen, this is relevant for Karen with the program that she's spinning up. This will be a good demo of programs that are in flux, which is more, in terms of their learning outcomes, which is more perhaps relevant and helpful even for programs who don't have a lot of that change right now. So Robin, I'm going to ask you to drive. Hold up your favorite browser, maybe not Chrome, or maybe not Edge, and navigate to the college intranet homepage.
Okay.
And then share your screen with us. Just closing the door to avoid hallway noise. All right, I am seeing your calendar right now. We have a very busy Tuesday, November 19th.
There we go.
Nice. All right, college intranet homepage. So we don't have a tile yet. Carrie, let's add that to one of our follow-ups. It would be nice to get a watermark tile on my Reynolds. We don't have that yet. So actually, Robin, that browser that's opened the tab, go to the upper left, yeah. And then actually, this is the homepage, so go back to the top for me. And click on faculty and staff, and then Reynolds intranet, second one down. Nice. Now at the very bottom, you are right. Scroll to the bottom middle of this, watermark. That's another follow-up for us. See if we can adjust the intranet page to put watermark at the bottom again. Okay, planning and self-study, please. Thank you. Let's scroll. We can either enter the program here by clicking on Business AS or Enter Program, or we could scroll down to 24-25 Program Assessment Plans, because we're going to talk about assessment today. Yes, very nice. So again, this is for this current year. Now, on this landing page, right, this is where the system is saying it thinks that we want to measure this year, 24-25, 3 outcomes. The program may have many more, right? Or hopefully not too many more. But this is where we have determined that for this academic year, we want to collect some evidence of student learning on analyzing business functions, applying business concepts, and ethical principles. So this is our goal for the year. And again, remember, there's no requirement to measure every learning outcome every year. Usually measuring more than one is typical. I could accept an argument that, well, we're really doing a deep dive into one of our learning outcomes. And if that's the case, then I would say, well, let's pick a couple of different measures maybe for one outcome. But in this case, Robin, we are, and again, I know this is going to still be in flux and we are still figuring things out. But what I'm interested in seeing now is on the right part of the screen, I don't know if our pictures are covering it up, next to Business Administration AS Learning Outcomes is this refresh aligned results button. And that's something I hadn't seen before, but let's try it and see what happens. Most up-to-date information, results are being refreshed. So that's kind of neat, and we're going to take a look at what that means in a second. Authorize yourself before refreshing. Let's click done here, Robin, and I'm going to show you maybe where that appeared. So hopefully on the screen, it's apparent that there are sort of 3 bars that encompass SLO1, SLO2, SLO3. And if you click on any of the bars, they will expand into a drop-down. And the drop-down now shows that we have identified one source of student learning for analyzing business functions, and it's this productivity project. I'm hoping this sounds somewhat familiar, Robin.
Yes.
So for our training, for our reminder today, and Karen, if you want to, we can walk through Robin's example, and if you want to go back out and walk through something for your sake, we can. But
I'm following along, trying to in Watermark with you.
Oh, great. So you might see slightly different things, but if you want to, once we go through Robin's example, I'm happy to take a look with you at yours. For now, Robin, I want you to just hover your mouse over those 3 little vertical dots next to project productivity in that tile. If you click on these more options, it should give us a little pop-up that we can either remove from plan at the bottom, like I don't really want to use this project this year, which I'm not going to say for us to do because you've done the work to put it there. Or you can go into the measure details, which will, let's click on that right now. We can come back to this screen. The measure details sends us to a new screen where we have done this work already, and that in the Business 100 course, you have identified a project that is a way that we're going to measure students' knowledge on their ability to analyze business functions. Does that all sound somewhat correct, Rob? Oh, I got Robin in the middle of a sneeze.
Sorry about that. Yes.
And what you did in terms of a target, which I like, is you said your expectation is that the students overall will achieve a 75% score. That's sort of what, that number may be somewhat arbitrary, but you're saying that's what you sort of have expectations for. I would say 100% is probably unrealistic. 50% is probably too low. So you picked a nice midpoint of what you would expect. And then you actually dropped into the description what the questions are, which is really cool. Just as an example of saying, yep, this is what that project is, and this is how I'm going to score it. So this is a summary screen of what we've done. If you scroll down a little bit more, Robin, on this one, we're going to see that the results here were what we did before when we went into Canvas and pulled scores out of this assignment. I think we were making this stuff up. Is that right? Or did you actually have a...
No, this actually exists, but what we found out was you have to use a rubric
in Canvas
so that it can tie into the rubric to determine success.
That's
and
right.
We weren't using success, so it didn't report correctly.
That's right.
And I haven't had a chance to go back in.
Thank you for that reminder. That's right. So as a refresh, this system plays very nicely with Canvas and assignments and anything that faculty are using the built-in rubric scoring system within Canvas to record student scores. And the nice thing is that this summarizes all of those individuals. Again, we're stepping up out of the class specifically here to give you some sort of sense of how students are doing. So we use this as a sample. And Karen, we can walk into that with you if helpful to think about some of the either bio classes that you're looking at or new ones, if there are assignments in there that have rubrics. So what we did, Robin, earlier on that homepage was we refreshed the results right here. And then you can see the date below it saying it was last refreshed today. But the nice thing is that once you build this connection, it stays built until you tell it to be modified. Now,
does that include when I create spring session, it will forward it to the spring session?
That's a great question, Robin. I think we have to go back in and select the spring data.
That would make sense because it would be a different course number.
That's right. One of the goals that Terry and I have asked Watermark to update is the ability to select multiple sections. If you have the same assignment in the same rubric in different course sections, and I can't remember even if it's across courses.
That would be very helpful since we have multiple teachers teaching Business 100.
Yes.
But we'd also need to break it down as aggregate and disaggregate.
That's right. That's right. And so we will work on that. My hope was that we were going to see something this fall, but Terry just looked not too long ago and said it wasn't.
Okay.
Wasn't up and running yet, but that is a to be delivered. So this point on our discussion today has all actually been background and build up to the work that you've already done, Robin. Today's topic was, what do we do with findings and results? And so as you can see in this landing page, a little bit down below, scrolling, the results were 100%. The findings are meant to provide you with an opportunity to say, overall, students did what I wanted them to do. Or I saw some issues with student learning here and I attribute it to an out-of-date textbook or a struggle to blah, blah, blah. This is you assigning a judgment to what we picked as a way to measure student learning. These are the findings based on the results that we just did. And the first one, Robin, was that little drop down next to measure status, just above the text box that you just highlighted. You can make the judgment of whether the results were met or not met. You selected met, obviously, because it was at 100% and your target was at 75, even though we fabricated that, right? And again, you're not being judged or evaluated at all in this process of having met or not met things. This is purely your evaluation of how the students are doing. So this isn't a don't ever say not met sort of status, because not met can still tell you something, right? Students not meeting your expectations is still meaningful to you, I hope, because it gives you the opportunity then to investigate why. And again, no punishment here at all, other than the opportunity for you to examine and figure out why. And even if they've met, right? Met doesn't necessarily mean, okay, they met my expectations, I'm done. It's they met it, and here's what my take is from them meeting those expectations. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So when we get into the habit of using this system over multiple years, the idea is that you can shift from learning objective to learning objective, so that when you come back to this productivity project, which maybe you're going to take next year off, you will have findings from the past that will be listed here, because you can see that button up there that says past findings. We won't have it. You can click on that button, but there won't be anything yet, right? Because we don't have a history here. But the idea is that on that right-hand screen, you would see in 23-24, we measured students' productivity and they scored a 62 out of what I was expecting them to get, 75. And therefore I put blah, blah, blah in place. And this year we hit 100%. So what I put in place must have worked. That's what it's meant to do year over year, so that it's recording some of your efforts so you don't have to remember them. Or if somebody new comes into place, they can say, what did Robin do the last time? Oh, I see, she used this project, it worked or it didn't work, and here's why. But these findings, I wanted to say, are to some extent the so what of all of the activity that we just undertook. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Karen, are you following along? Is that logical to you? That's pretty straightforward, I hope. Let's go back, Robin, because we didn't really change anything here. So I was hoping you could, yes. The only part below that were the actions, and we played around with the actions a little bit, but we'll spend more time on that. Yes, I wanted to do this analysis of the outcome. So remember, scroll back up a little bit. Yes, so we are talking about analyzing business functions, right? This is our outcome that we are focused on. We talked about this project that was on productivity. You could, Robin, have another in a different class entirely way to measure business functions. And this is where I say this is optional. There should be at least one measure, but you are open to multiples if you're like in the situation where you say, I'm doing this work also in our Econ 202 class. And we've got an assignment in Econ 202 in Canvas that has a rubric, that et cetera, et cetera. So you can put multiple measures in, but this is where I come back to reasonability for faculty. I am open to helping you do that if it's reasonable to you and if it would provide something of interest to you. The minimum is one measure per outcome. That's the minimum. I would say the maximum, I probably would not go over 3 or 4 because that's a bunch of work. But the more comfortable we get in using this system and the more useful we think the results are to us or to you as faculty, then we can encourage other measures.
Did you want to put one more in here so people see the process?
If you want to walk through one together with us, that'd be great. We could do that.
Okay.
And that's what I think Karen was working through too. So let's say that in addition to productivity, we want to also analyze some business functions in a different class.
Okay, let's look at economics.
Yep. And again, in your head, when you do this, you should be thinking, I know of an assignment in a different class. I know of something somewhere that exists that will help us. So here's our measure adding field. So you're going to select the method of what you're doing. And the method could be, again, an assignment, a test, an exam, any of these options. And it doesn't have to be. You can also do an other. But if it's one of, they try to capture most of the things that would be something that would indicate how students are learning. All right, let's say that there is a quiz that you've got in a course that talks about how students, that helps students demonstrate how they can analyze business functions. So now, Robin, we're going to scroll down and go into the course that, or the courses that are in our curriculum map. So again, this is pulling from the work we did the last time. You should see in this drop-down list all of the courses that are associated with the Business AS program. Now, Terry and I probably have too many in here, but the hope is that you can search for, like you're doing very well, a course that would make sense. Now, they put a little checkbox to the right saying non-course based measure. And all that means is that if you've got something that isn't connected to one particular course, but maybe spans a couple, like if you do a program capstone, I'm thinking maybe health professions has stuff like this that might be across courses. It's an odd function, but it's there in case something like that exists. I don't expect us to be using that checkbox very much.
Okay.
All right, so in Econ 201, this is where I will need you to think of what quiz, is there a name to a quiz? And if you don't have one right now, Robin, we could just make one up and we could just say quiz 3 or something like that, right? It's either, it's a beginning, I don't know how faculty number or name their quizzes, but you've got a very specific one, which is great. Okay, let's go see if we can find this in Canvas. This is the align results step. So let's collect the results yourself. So the first button, and then next. The source is going to be from Canvas. You've already authorized it, so we don't have to go through that step of making sure it knows that you are who you are. So you click next. This should be the econ. Is there an ECO acronym? Let's see. Yep, there it is. Then here's where you're going to start typing ECO space 201. Oops, you had it there for a minute, lost it. There it is. Oh, no, so Robin, it's in there just as it would appear normally. So just type, actually do this, just type ECO space 201 and then click.
Okay.
Or is it fall first? I forget. Let's try ECO space 201 and then click search. There it is.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
So
good.
If you wanted to narrow it, you could type fall 2024 space, fall space 2024 space, and then click search. There you go. Much easier. So you had the FX one, right? Yep. And again, this is the upgrade, Robin, that eventually will come, that instead of radio buttons, you're gonna be able to click.
It's definitely planned.
So Terry knows that Watermark's got it, but in the future, you can go check, 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 check. And as long as the assignments are all the same and the rubrics all the same, you get to aggregate scores across sections.
Nice, okay.
Yes, and then let's click next. Now, if there is an assignment that you have in here that was scored on a rubric, there it is, cool. So there are some assignments. I don't know if those codes mean anything to you or not. Those look like, and this is where, again, the long-term plan, Rob and Karen, here is to have faculty name assignments that when they appear in this list make sense to them. So it's funny you've got that bio/I, maybe that's like a biography of the student or something. I don't know what these are. So the other thing that we could do together, Robin, is we could go into Canvas and open that Econ 201 class and take a look at the assignments. And see if there's a.
And I do have Professor Oswana's permission, just as an FYI.
Is there anything? Oh, here, go on the left, go to assignment. Is it assignments or grades? I'm trying to remember. There's a place where it lists. There's DQ1. Click
and
on
bio/1.
Yeah, and bio. Let's click on DQ1 on the Canvas site.
And then the V.
So Karen, if you can't find any assignments, if there are none listed like Robin's seeing in the dropdown, that means that a Canvas rubric was not used to score the assignment. So, and that's what it says right below that dropdown actually. Canvas assignments without rubrics will not be available to select. Now this is where, let's see, where's the rubric? Scroll back up a little bit, Robin. I think the rubric, show rubric, yay. There it is, cool, cool. So this was how Chris used he had a 3 criteria rubric, answered all question. So his is kind of interesting. And again, if I were to work with him, I would modify that rubric, right? What he did was he just put scores in to the boxes.
And we already have. This is an older style. We
Yeah.
just went through this term, we're revising for next term.
Oh, perfect, perfect, perfect. Yeah, because I would say a rubric within each box should have a description of the level of knowledge or competence or something. So he's got the grades or the points in there, which is fine. Again, we're modifying it, but it should be clear what a 8, 9, or 10 score is versus a 6, 7, or 8, or a 4, 5, 6. Like it should describe in those what makes that score true. But anyway, what you're playing around with, Robin, is what the system is designed to do. And if the rubric score of, so how many? It's 10, 20, 30? Is it?
It's worth 40.
40. So 75% of 40, I mean, we could just say a score of 30 or above will be marked as met, right? We're just sort of making this up as we go.
Yeah.
But ideally, it would be meaningful to Chris that the score summary of the rubric is like, yeah, that's satisfactory to me. That indicates to me the students know what I wanted them to know. Score of 30, and exactly, that's what you're saying is considered met. Yeah, perfect. That's right. Exactly right, Robin. Nicely done. And then scroll down below this target. Again, this is where you could describe what the assignment is or drop in a copy of it. Again, only this is treating this system like a way to help us for the next time we go through this. So it's only as useful as the information we put in. Yeah, I just grabbed that top stuff. Yeah, perfect. Copy that and paste it in there. Perfect. Exactly right.
Except I'd actually grab the whole thing.
Okay. Anyway, you're using this tool as it's designed to be used, Robin. That's great. So then I would click Add at the top of this in the purple button. That'll take us back to our, yeah, we can manage them now, I guess. So this.
Yeah, it's a closed assignment.
That's right. So this will, now let's scroll down here a little bit. So it took us back to the description of it. Oh, shucks. So for whatever reason, maybe
I'm assuming it's because it's closed.
No, if there were scores in, so sometimes what I've learned, Robin, in doing this is that faculty will design and put a rubric out there, but they don't actually use the rubric to collect student scores. Like they
Okay.
use it as a clear indicator of what the assignment is expecting, but they don't do the work of click, 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 and then save. And then that saves all of the scores in Canvas, which is where Watermark is going to look. I've heard that a couple of times. They're like, well, I built the
Okay.
rubric, but I just didn't score, I didn't use the rubric to score the assignments in Canvas, and that's okay. But you're walking through all the necessary steps. So this is where ideally the results would show up and say, hey, the student's got a 35 on average out of 40. And then we would scroll down below the results, right, to judge the findings. We're assuming the results came in a certain way, or maybe they came in at a 28, right? This is where you'd say, if they came in at a 28 or a 25, you'd say, oh, well, I'm judging those as not being met. Therefore, I need to add a lecture on whatever DQ1 is meant to try to measure. But you're doing, this is the example, Robin, that I wanted to share and have recorded so that others could make sure that for every outcome, you've got at least one measure of student learning. And it's easy to connect it to Canvas, but even if you don't have it in Canvas, Chris could probably say, oh yeah, I've got those scores right here. And we can go into, in Canvas, grades, I forget which category it is on the left, and you could look at the column where he scored all the students' work and then get the sum or the average at the bottom. And what Watermark does is it just does that automatically.
And as I'm looking through it, no, he didn't use the rubric except as an instructional piece.
Actually export
Yeah.
the grade book and upload it here if you want.
So that'll be an important item to include.
Yeah, and Terry's reminding me that the ability to export the grade book out of I'm trying to save faculty steps, but
You don't
Terry's,
have to.
yeah, Terry's thinking about if you did use the grade book to score the student work, you do have the ability to export that grade book and upload it here to say, here's where I tracked and kept the score, which is a little redundant because you're putting it in two places where you don't really need to. This system is designed to connect to Canvas so that those scores can be brought in, but
I'm
again,
thinking if you,
only if
with the
you're
result
using it.
that we got,
Yeah.
because it wasn't scored in there.
And then new action. Oh, okay. So that you
Yeah,
can
and
make
remember,
adjustments.
this is the next step too, Robin, so it's good you're playing around with this. So you've done some work, you've got some results, you've judged whether those results, those findings were to your expectations or not, and then based on your judgment, you're deciding to do something with that. So this is the big piece that will help you, I think, help faculty take a next step. All right, well, I've done all this, what am I gonna do with it? Either I'm gonna think about making a new community partnership, maybe I'm gonna modify something, maybe I'm gonna keep doing what I've been doing, maybe I'm gonna revise, maybe my target was too high, right? Maybe 75% is, maybe I should lower my expectations a little bit, which isn't always helpful. But maybe I think about wording it differently, or maybe I wasn't clear in how, so again, this is meant to prompt the so what do I do with this? And that you're putting it in this system so you don't have to keep it in your brain. But when you come back to it, it's there. And you've made these notes to say, that's right, I said I was going to do this. It's in my plan for the spring or the break or whatever. And I'll spend time on figuring this out.
Nice.
That's great. Let's drop an example in, yeah. And then you can make notes in here to say, I'm in progress, or I haven't really started it yet. And I'm basically going to take a look at or I'm going to make sure I score on the rubric or something. Win the lottery, perfect. And then you can even say, hey, here's a due date. Now, Terry and I have not turned on yet. This system does provide the ability to notify you via email for certain things. And we haven't done that yet because we thought that'd be a little bit over the top. But
Will this ultimately go to a report?
yes, and then all of what we're talking about right now is in program assessment. We're in the program assessment track. And At the end of the spring, we asked the department chairs one more time just to go in to verify the stuff that has been done during the year. And then you click, there is a, I forget what it's officially, finish and submit, or just submit. And then you're basically saying, yep, I've done my activities for the year. Then during the summer, the academic leadership team and the deans take a read through this and figure out how they can provide support or help, or if there was something that came up that requires a discussion or a conversation. That's how they go about, similar to program health in that way. What stories did you tell? What actions did you take? Are you saying that something is out of alignment that could be addressed? And this is another way to do that. Yeah, go ahead and create the action if you want, and then it'll just get saved. You can always go back and revise and change these.
Yeah, I'm gonna delete it when we're done, so.
Delete it when we're done. So save and close this, Robin, on the upper right, because you've done some good work here. Then it will take us back to the various outcomes and see, now we've got these two measures for the first outcome. And it'll keep letting you add. I do think it stops at 5.
Nice. So maintain, revise, nice.
And then see that big purple banner right there, the analyze outcome?
Mm-hmm.
Do have the ability to say, overall, this first learning outcome, based on the evidence I looked at, I feel confident that the curriculum, the college, the faculty is sufficiently teaching students about, what's this one called? I forget the title of this outcome. This is talking about analyzing business functions. This is where you are, based on those measures, making an overall judgment about, yep, our program is properly preparing students to analyze business functions based on these metrics that we've looked at. Or we are not sufficiently teaching our students to analyze business functions, and this is what I'm going to do about it. So that's what the overall, because these are micro measures, right? Productivity, you're looking at a project, you're looking at a specific quiz, and those are very micro level, but then you need to step back out and say, okay, well, based on those data points, I'm happy, or I'm satisfied, or I'm not, and here's what I'm going to do about it. And that's what that analyze outcome button was that you started below that.
Nice.
So that is the process of going through an academic program assessment plan for the year. Again, this is where I totally preach reasonability. The minimum is 1 to 2 outcomes. So again, depending on how many outcomes you've got, this is where I defer to the faculty and the department chairs, that the minimum is you are looking at an outcome and you are looking at student work. And I would say you probably need to do at least 2 outcomes and 1 bit of evidence per outcome. When you get into 3 and 4 and 5, it's just growing the work that you do. Some department chairs have that built into their regular semester activity and things that they do, so it's pretty natural for them.
And I could see doing that after we get the revised program in place, yeah, and the standardized assignments and things like that. That's I can see making that the regular process.
That's what I'm growing to, I hope, Robin, that we can, within reason, and I totally understand the demands of time on department chairs, so I get that. But like I like to joke with people, is there anything more important than what we do than student learning, right? Student learning is, I like to say, at the core of this entire institution. And in order to demonstrate that that's happening and that we're paying attention to it and that we're measuring it and that we're adjusting, this is how we tell that story. This tool is how we tell this story. So it is review and submit. That is the button on the upper right. Once you've gone through, so we went through 1 of your 3 outcomes. And then you would just do similarly, Robin, for the other 2 outcomes that you've got. Again, this is just for this year. And you can revise and say, you know what, 3 is too many. I'm just going to do business functions and ethics or something, whatever you choose, and say that's enough for me for this year. Next year, I'll look at something else, or keep one of them the same because I want to see how it's changed over time, and I'll add something different. So that's,
And since the AS degree isn't changing, I think we'll stick with that one this year.
yeah.
And is it okay that I don't do the AAS until next year?
So we need to at least have evidence that something is being looked at.
Okay.
If it's similar, that's where I've been trying to work with the program heads to say, when we are evaluated, when we are reviewed externally, they're going to want to see that every program at least is doing something. It doesn't have to be very much, but it does have to be, we've got our clear outcomes, we've got our built curriculum map so we know what we're doing, and I did spend a little bit of time paying attention to my learning outcomes. So yes, we have to be able to show that some activity has been occurring in all of our degree programs every year.
Okay. And I have some overlap in the program, so I can make that happen.
That's exactly my hope, that yes,
Okay.
I measured it here for the AS, I measured something similar, but a little bit different for the AAS, for
Good.
the CSCs, et cetera. There is some opportunity there to overlap stories, I think.
Nice. Okay.
But that's the gist of it. And so thank you, Robin, for letting us see what you were working on. Karen, do you want to share a screen and walk through any of your exercises, or how are you feeling about what Robin was demonstrating there?
Well, the one thing that I'm struggling with specific to biotechnology is potentially some of those outcomes are going to be demonstrated physical skills in the lab.
Yep.
And I'm still working through within this system how to measure that. And I guess it's more of something I've got to talk with the other faculty members and say, okay, this is a rubric we're going to have for this, for their final exam or whatever in that big lab class, because that's a huge piece of the program. And I think it would be really important to have that as part of this program health. Like, you can know all the book things, but this is a biotechnology lab manager degree. We got to make sure that you can do the things and not just, recognize them in a multiple choice question, right?
Yes.
That you know how to make the solutions and work the equipment and stuff like that.
I would say, Karen, that our colleagues in health professions and maybe even some of the CTE programs might have some thoughts for us there.
Yeah, I was also maybe going to reach out to like Tanya Haney.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And maybe I was trying to think of some of the folks who, almost anybody in health profession, because they have to demonstrate. Dental maybe, David Mendoza, right? That they have to watch students perform something and then evaluate the accuracy and I think they even have things like, how are you interacting with the patient? Like how they're scoring other things other than just technical skill, right? But, and I think David in particular said he had a rubric that he was using adjacent to Canvas. And I said, oh, if you put that in Canvas, we can get your scores really quickly. So there are things underway at Reynolds, I think, Karen, that could be used. So you're not reinventing. I would say certainly start with the labs and your lab colleagues. But I think we could also learn from Tanya or David or others who are doing this in other settings too. But this was what I was hoping to accomplish for today, because this was meant to be just a focus on the aspects of evaluating, judging findings. You did some work. There was some student results that came in. We didn't quite see it work for that one econ class, Robin, but I think we know why. And we can pull in results from other places. So Terry and I were thinking through, instead of then the rubric scores in Canvas, you could look at the gradebook and see, okay, well, overall, if I summarize the score, examine the scores and average them, it would still give me, and you can type that, you can type those numbers in rather than asking Canvas to pull them in. And you could still make a judgment on an assignment that is measuring business functions and the ability to analyze. So you're not, if Canvas doesn't work, you don't have to throw up your hands and say, well, I tried, it didn't work. You can say, well, we did an assignment and there was a quiz and we did score it and we have results. And those results tell us something about student knowledge on a particular concept related to the program. So this is where I stay out of the weeds of courses, but there are pieces of courses that can inform up to what the program is expecting students to know or to demonstrate or do. And that was a great.
Now, quizzes wouldn't work for that at this point because apparently because they don't use rubrics.
And I am a fan of rubrics, but I know that they're not always, I almost say, I think you can use a rubric for anything. Can use a rubric to tell my dog how much I love him, right? How many times a day do I feed him? How many times do I walk him? How many times do I scratch him behind the ear, right? And do I do it with different levels of skill? And so I almost think, and I'm being a little facetious, but I almost think rubrics can be useful and helpful to score most things. And the more as a campus we talk about that and encourage faculty to consider the use of those, I just think it's mostly useful for faculty to score or to evaluate student performance or knowledge. That's the main thing. Secondarily, it makes it a little bit easier to pull results together and evaluate things on the back end scoring side. But yes, rubric use, I think, can be a really helpful tool. So that was what I wanted to accomplish today. It didn't take us a full hour, but that's okay. I'm glad for the opportunity to walk through this with you, and thank you, Robin, for being the guinea pig. What else can we talk about? Is there anything else you'd like to discuss or know today?
I do have a question regarding outcomes, but I don't know if you want to wait till we're done or if you want to do it now.
Oh, okay. I guess we can stop the recording and walk through some other related issues. Karen, was there anything that you wanted to cover related to this before we shift gears a little bit?
No, I think there's so much work that I need to get done in terms of putting this all together because it is from the beginning, right? It's a new program, which means it's all got to be generated. That I'm not even to the point where I don't know what I don't know. Okay.
I am, as you know me, I am so open to having further conversations with you if you want to start somewhere and build. Glad to, whenever your schedule permits or whenever your brain says, okay, I'm ready for that conversation, I'm happy to schedule a Zoom or meet in person or whatever you want to do and just say, all right, let's lay out a reasonable plan for us. But I think to Robin's transition point, to me, it all starts with those learning outcomes. We need a clear, measurable, reasonable list. And I'm not talking about covering everything. It's the basics. It's the floor of what you want every student to be standing on to say, yep, they got the minimum that I was expecting.